Well, welcome back to another episode of Corralling the Chaos. We've been doing the podcast now for a couple of years, and some of our most listened to episodes have been around the great people in our industry and things that we need to do as an industry to teach them, train them, motivate more to join our industry, really invest in them. And so today we wanted to dive into that topic again. And to help us do that, we have Stephen Jensen from SJP in Vegas. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here and honored that you think that I'm great.
I do. And I love and you have the same passion for helping these great people in our industry, which is kind of what brought you and I together, which is always fun when you kind of share the same passion. But before we jump into that topic, tell us a little bit about kind of your background and how you specifically got into this industry.
All right. So that's a fun story, and I'll try to keep it short because there's lots of chapters along the way. But the way I like to tell it is some of my first memories in life are growing up in the front pew of a megachurch. My father was the music director. So literally some of my first memories are, I guess, these grand, I don't, forever has been to one or not, just there's lots of lights, the latest and greatest projectors. House of worship sound is just a different type of sound. There's a whole book on House of Worship. So those are some of my first memories. And any people who do listen to gospel music, our church band was Israel Houghton, and he has gone on to have a very successful career, won 5 Grammys. And so lo and behold, at 7, 8 years old, I didn't know that that's what I was experiencing, right? So I got very involved in it, touching the audio boards, being in studios, playing with lights, because I would be at rehearsals, I'd be there late. So I'm a kid just doing it, just like you would play video games or whatever. Just had access to be able to do these things. So as that life goes on, I was always the kid that could install your home stereo, could fix the thing, and write all the different AV. That was just always a knack. And as life went on, I ended up in Vegas. And someone called me, hey, I know you did touring and you worked with bands and all of these things. Do you want to come help us out with this show at Mandalay Bay? Yeah, sure, let's go. So I was just pushing some cases, helping out, doing my thing. And we're getting to setups and start hearing a lot of feedback. I go in there, fix a little audio board, kind of do the thing. And these guys go, who are you? Whoever we were working for this many years ago. And, say, how did you know how to do that or whatever? Who taught you this? And I just basically was like, it was like walking. And they're like, can you come over here and start showing some of these guys what you just did? And can you explain? And then that turned into me kind of managing the breakouts. And that was like my first experience ever working in Vegas. And that's literally how I fell into that kind of from an entertainment spectrum growing up, falling into more of a corporate world in Las Vegas. And a world that I didn't even know really existed, but it makes sense, right? All your general sessions, the breakout rooms, bang. So now I'm there. That was about circa 2010. So that's like the short of it, obviously.
I feel like it's interesting. I feel every time I ask somebody kind of how did you get into the industry, everyone has a little bit of a different story. I don't think I've heard my dad worked at a mega church before and I grew up in the front pew. I don't think I've heard that one before, but it totally does make sense, right? Because these churches have these big productions and
absolutely.
And these whole production teams, right, to produce a church service. And so it makes sense to me. But what do you think is the most common entry point for all the techs and crew that you work with? What's typically the story that you hear most common?
My cousin called me, my brother, my sibling, a friend. It was like that Vegas story. It was kind of like, hey, will you come help me unload this semi? We got a gig, right? It's a thing. Or my friend's band's in town. They need some help, unloading and loading up. And I really think that's how most people start.
Yeah. And then they got to
get
the bug and they're like, oh my gosh, I just helped put this whole thing, this whole experience together. And then they're kind of hooked from there. Yeah, I do hear that a lot.
And that's what's so satisfying about it, right? With live events is that you get to physically feel accomplished in a short amount of time. There's a lot of things that take a lot of work. You're like an artist, right? Doing a painting, hours and hours and forever, right? I know artists that spend 80 hours on a painting or more. And you get to see like a city come up in like 2 days, or this grand production.
Yeah.
And then you just feel so accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And then it's amazing how fast it unravels from 5 to 10 hours tops that it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, it's something tangible. It's all that work, and you see the before and after. It's kind of unbelievable. You walk in, it's a blank slate, and then, to your point, by the time it's done being set up, it looks completely different, and it's a tangible piece of satisfaction to see what you created and built. So how do people, if so much of our industry kind of came from that, and that is a common story I hear too, how do they go from, hey, I went to help my cousin unload a truck and put some things together, to, okay, I now have a career in this? How do they make that jump? How do they create a career out of that?
I'll share, it'll be a little hybrid of my story and then others that I know coming up, is that it takes a degree of proactiveness, right? Like, you are your own brand as an individual, even though you're coming in representing other companies, like coming in representing Lasso, coming in Ovation, LMG, right? I mean, I think I've worked for all of them under the sun, and you come in and you're representing them. But at first you have to represent yourself well, right? You have to be proactive. And that's what I was. I was mostly an audio guy, and everyone's an audio guy apparently in this industry. But, if you want to keep working, get versatile, right? Like, I started to sponge off guys that were good at video, ask them questions. Okay, everyone knows what an HDMI is, etc. But what is the real nitty gritty? We're getting into these switchers and now these media servers and the projection. That was one thing. There wasn't a lot of projectionists, so I started just honing in on projection, and getting a lot more work that way. One of my other niches, getting into like production of the interpretation stuff, is like really becoming versatile, noticing who's not necessarily better, but noticing who is more skilled in their craft, looks like they know what they're doing, they're on a nice pace. Hey, can I work with you? Can I ask questions, sponge off you while we're going about? And so that's, sorry for the long answer, but that would really be being a little self-reliant, being proactive, which takes a little
like being curious, like ask the question, observant. Yeah.
There's a lot of curious people who don't go that one more step.
Yeah.
And so I think that's some level of just being bold. Just because if you do have that curiosity to even start, you have to make that leap.
You see a lot of people taking that leap, being proactive, being curious to kind of learn and kind of broaden their skills. Are you still seeing kind of this? I feel like after COVID, there was this new entrance of people coming into our industry. Do you see that they are more or less curious than kind of the generation before?
I think there's a lot of curiosity, but there's a lot less teachers. There's a lot less people that are willing to take it on. I also think even pre-COVID, there's this idea of, if I teach these people how to do the thing, they'll steal my job, right? Like, now I'll get, right, there's more people that I worked to create a culture and cultivate a culture of people who all wanted to grow and get better together.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to create opportunities for people and connect the dots for them is really what I was passionate about. I wanted to make that top 10% team, why is what my labor I'm bringing forward, which I don't really like the word labor, but my staff, these are professional staff. If you're an AV/IT technician, you're an interpreter, this is professional level staffing. These people are really smart, clean cut, come in and get it done. But so really nurturing that, I started to train people, pair them with mentors. And this was just all kind of what I noticed needed to happen, and then just started doing, right? and try to get away with that stigma of I need to gatekeep, I guess is the word we're using these days, all of this knowledge I have and then safeguard it. And so in our community, we certainly like mentoring people, sharing, every bit of knowledge that we have, getting people as much opportunities as they can to get hands-on with a board, an audio board or a lighting board, a video switcher, in a non-confrontational environment, like not on a gig where they can just come to a warehouse, play, and get comfortable. And that's the start. I just hope more companies can nurture that or have a space to do that. And I think that's really the beginning.
Well, you just said it, right? Nurture that and make a space for that, because that's kind of, it's like, hey, I'm new to the industry. I started unloading a truck. How am I going to get the opportunity to learn on a board if I'm not hired on that event, unless somebody is opening up their shop to say, hey, we're going to do some hands-on training totally outside of an event, right? That's step one. And then, okay, how do I operate a board with the stress of a live event, right? That's very different than just operating it in the warehouse while you're practicing and those sorts of things. So I think companies, they all want the industry to get better and to learn, to teach. And I think my hope is we don't wait for other people to do it, that we just start doing it ourselves, right? If we really want this next generation of techs to learn, to be fast, for us to have plenty of supply to kind of help produce the event, to nurture it, because that's the nature of the freelance world, right? They're not coming in and they're not on somebody's bench full time. They're freelancers. And so unless somebody takes them under their wing to really train them and mentor them, it's not going to happen. And then people have fewer and fewer choices. And I have seen that change in the last few years, which has been really encouraging. I've seen more training happening than I've ever seen. I don't know are you seeing that too?
How we all kind of live in our tunnel though, because this industry really, this is why this is really nice to talk to you, because we get in this like tunnel vision of events sometimes. From what I know, it's your national teams of like your LMGs and your PRGs, nationwides, that you're going to have an onboarding, you're a W-2 employee. If you have any examples of like kind of companies that are bringing on contractors and doing a training, I'm not going to say I'm the only one doing it, but with tunnel vision, I'm actively doing it. I don't know who else is on that note. So,
yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, I know some of our, like the first one that came to my mind is Encompass Events in Denver. I know they do.
Oh, I've actually worked with those guys. They were I guess I was there more as the PM, and they were kind of like the hired on labor, an AV company, and I thought they were great. So
Michael Andrews in New York, but I'm just seeing it more and more. Companies are willing to invest the time and the energy to do that, which I think is so fantastic that they're doing.
And there's some level, if you don't have all the gear, I mean, there's some level of I've invested in renting some stuff for the week just to get people out there. There's a low investment, and I started with people. I'm not this giant gear company. I'm more of a producer and technical director now is the role I like to do on site. I came up as an engineer, and I came up pushing cases just like everybody else. Now I've been able to get into that world of show calling, producing, directing, doing music videos. It's that curiosity and just taking the leap, right? So I've gotten full spectrum now. I think I've gone plaid is what they say. I don't know if you're a space spouse. No, but it's a lot. And I don't know. Surround yourself with smarter people, right? Because you're never going to know everything. And if you come in with that, like, I don't know everything attitude, some humility is the word I'm looking for, and you want to learn something that way, that day, like there's always someone you can learn from. I hope to nip I work to nip the attitude with a lot of my guys is like, I don't care if you've been in this industry 10, 15 years, you learn to do it wrong. Be ready to get some coaching and tweak a few things about what's going on. And then I think
that's so great that you say that, because I think a lot of people are scared, nervous, apprehensive to say something like you just said, because it's like, hey, I rely on John. He's the one. And if they see John make a mistake or have a little bit of arrogance, they're like, I can't really coach him appropriately because I really kind of depend on him. But at the end of the day, you know, I think good people want to be coached. Good people, you just said it, humility, right? They want to know if they can do something better. So my hope is there will be more of that kind of honest conversation back and forth. And same with the other way. There's a lot of techs out there who work for companies who are not great to them. And they're not going to say anything either because they're like, well, I really need the job. I really need the work. But hey, it would really be nice if I had a safer working environment, or if you over communicated some of the things, or if everything wasn't last minute. You know, I mean, I think it goes both ways for those things to work. So my hope is people will be more honest and frank to have those kind of meaningful conversations. But you talk a lot about mentorship and coaching, and clearly that's a personal thing for you as well. But who within these organizations, who do you think really should carry the role of coach and mentor? Like when you're at an event site, who are the mentors, or who are the people or the roles that people should seek out?
Biasly, me on my shows, right? I try to pair the right people up with each other. It's a loaded question a bit because of the hierarchy. I don't know how much on-site work you've done, but you've got like an end client, you've got sometimes an event management company, then the event management company has hired a producer, the producer has hired an AV company. So the question of, if you study a little bit of how the military works in the hierarchy, I think that's a great structure to think of when you come into this world, is that, you're going to like your labor lead, and then there's like a PM, right? So I needed to just get that out. So the right question, or the answer to that, would be, hey, labor coordinator, I'm good at video, but who's the strongest video guy on this? It's kind of where it starts, because if you jump to talking to the producer, you're now getting in trouble. There's NDAs, there's contracts, etc. So it's a really interesting kind of like gatekeeping society of who you can talk to because of why. So,
and that's why, the question, right? If you're newer to events, you're newer to these event sites, you want to learn, you want to grow. What should I be looking for, right? I guess it depends on kind of what I'm there to do, right? Am I as audio, video? Like what is my entry point, right? But I think so many people, they really want to learn. They just don't understand the lay of the land and how they really can put that into action to turn it into a career and not just a job. If they really want to dive in, like what are about being humble, being proactive. But to the people listening that are newer to the career and they're kind of like, you know what? I've kind of dipped my toe in this. I think this is what I want to make a career. Like what are the 3 things they should go do next?
You need to be a self-starter, because you are starting in a way your own business. Mm-hmm. There are companies that you can call that are staffing agencies, or local staffing agencies. You should seek them out. If you know anyone in the industry, you should give them a phone call and say, hey, I want to do this. Mm-hmm. If you have a local union, drop an application off at the union. Any experience you can get, the better. And then also volunteerism. Volunteer at a church. Even if you don't go to church, volunteer at a theater. There's a lot of local theaters. There's school theaters. You could reach out to a school district and see what's going on, because that's really, and honestly, I really enjoy the volunteerism side of it as well, and giving back some of your skill or whatever. And also, if you're volunteering, one time I volunteered as an interpreter, and I don't think I did well, but it was a brain burner at a church. And, just listening for, and you're going, I only did like 10 minutes and I had to type out. And a lot of these professionals can go like 30 minutes plus. But I got to experience it, and guess what? There was no pressure, because if I messed up, I was volunteering, right?
Yep.
I wasn't getting a payday, so to speak, for that. So I think that if you really want to iron out some wrinkles in this career, that you go volunteer. And this is an industry where you don't need a degree. So, you could really take advantage of your time, or call it an internship for a lack of a better word. But seek out a mentor, or if you go to a theater or a house of worship, you're going to find someone, and you're genuinely curious, you're going to find someone that'll take you under.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good things. And what I like about that is you're going to see different things, right? At a church, it's going to be different. At a theater, even union to be different than working through a labor agency, right? So I think it exposes the individual to a lot of different things. Are there certain mistakes that you see people make when they enter the industry that you could kind of warn against?
Yeah, don't do a no-call, no-show. That's not only as good as the last show. Yeah, that's a certain death. If you really do it, you should get in contact with someone, even if it's a day later. Say you hit your head. I just did a recent show in San Antonio. I think I heard just about every one of those main excuses under the sun: family emergency, kids throwing, like flat tire. It's like, we're used to it, and we get it as labor coordinators. And you always want to give that respect that something really went down, but you also kind of can hear the tone of people's voice. They're like, yeah, I got you on that. But those can always pass as long as you're communicative, right? If you do a no call, no show, you're hanging yourself in the industry. You're going to become that, which in my notes, since we're kind of going there, was be reliable. You got to be reliable in this industry. You've got to be punctual, which is not on time, it's early, because you got to be ready to work by shift time, not parking at shift time, not walking around looking for the room.
Right.
You're there, you're in front of the client, ready to work at your 8 a.m. call. So you got to make that call, right? And then I know I've touched this one a few times, but being proactive, those are the three core things to this. Seeking out a company like me who's passionate about training people, and the others, encompass. Hopefully we can find more examples. I plan on giving them a call after this podcast just to see what we can do nationally. They're more Midwest. I'm more located out West. Like what can we really get going to write the book, right? To make some standards of procedure of what is the beginning expectations for people, and safety being the first thing. Knowing about electricity. Don't touch electricity if you don't know what the heck you're doing on site.
Oh, yeah.
I still don't like touching electricity if I don't have to, just because, I don't care to.
Yeah.
So I don't tell people I know how to do lighting. I don't want to mess. Low voltage stuff is cool. Yeah. But yeah, for all the beginners, stay away from anything electric till you actually know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, when you think about training, what do you think from the technical side? What do you think our industry has a shortage of that you wish more people would go and get trained on?
I think a bread and butter is just a breakout room. If you can do a rinse and repeat breakout room, and boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
That's kind of the beginning role, right? And it can get a little repetitive, but you hone that in, it just gets bigger from there. A bigger room, a bigger switch, whatever. Circle me back on the question. I think that's really the beginning, but what were we getting at there?
Just as far as like the technical skill gap that you think our industry has, like what's the biggest gap that we need to focus on training for to train everybody up to fill it?
A breakout room operator, someone who feels confident, and a lot of, we're not going to see analog boards too much longer. Everyone's moving to a 8 or 16 channel, Allen and Heath, or some kind of Roland video switcher. I mean, it's very rare that we're seeing too much more analog stuff these days. So it's time to make the leap and just encourage people not to become stagnant.
Yeah.
Like don't
There's always
plateau.
something to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changing.
I went engineer to business owner, and I don't have an MBA. I studied Spanish in college, right? So and grew up with the skill of AV. So every day has been a learning experience in running a business, and it's a lot, right? And you've got to really dive in. You got to read books. You've got to study. You got to ask questions and
be curious. Learning how to do it. Yeah.
Or be forced to, right?
Yeah. Well, you talk about kind of running a business, as we wrap up, tell the audience about your business, like why you started it, what exactly you guys do, and how our audience can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So, feel free to email directly at Stephen, which is with a PH, STEPHEN at sjp.vegas. You can hit me up directly. It really started, let's back up real quick. I'm always really passionate about being efficiency. What's the best way to do this? How can we make things better? And really, my company has been born out of creating solutions for people. And one of the first big problems I saw actively in Vegas is that people just weren't happy with the overall labor. You would get your main 10 guys, gals that are really humping, working hard and doing it. And then you got a lot of guys just kind of, milking it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to make a better team. That's really where this whole thing started. And coming out of college wanting to be an interpreter, that's why my spectrum is like AVIT interpretation. And I said to myself, if I have a great team of people nationwide, I used to be a tour manager. That's how this kind of came in. I already knew quite a few people around the country. If I have an amazing team and amazing people, we can do amazing things. It doesn't really matter what the challenge is, because it's going to take great team, great people, smart people to be the problem solver. And we created a culture where we pass notes. So just as importantly, to know what not to do than to know what to do. Mm-hmm. And we've made a community where we pass these notes, where we say what worked, what didn't, and just learning over all this time. So it's just a culmination of my network from entertainment to now corporate. And I was just really passionate about, let's train these people up. Let's have the best of the best. And to tell one more brief story or tidbit about that, and the philosophy is, I studied martial arts growing up, and Ishiri was the style. It's a fusion style. It's about being versatile, where you bring in the concepts from a lot of different things to create a singular style, if you will. And he's also famous for creating like the vertical fist of how you punch instead of turning, right? So very big philosopher. And people asked him, well, how are you going to make your students like better? Like, mm-hmm. What's so different? And what he did was he took a black belt kata from another style, and he made it the beginning first kata you learn, white belt. And it has 96 movements. And every other sensei was like, you're crazy. No one's going to be able to learn that at white belt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when these people come in and they're brand new, they don't know what's advanced and what's minimum. If you create this bar and these people don't have inhibitions, almost like a child, right? Like I have, my kids are speaking Chinese and Spanish and English. They don't have inhibitions, right? And so if you're coming in with this willingness to learn, and now you've got some guy who just made black belt, white belt, and you don't know the difference, and you're coming in, you're stepping onto the surface of this world, being a rock star already.
Yeah. Ignorance
ready to go.
In that scenario, right? They don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely.
And if they're told that that's the beginning, then that's where they're starting,
You have the opportunity to start where the beginning is.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Well, I think you've got a lot of, I appreciate the passion and the initiative to really invest in new people joining our industry and what your company is doing to really do that and train them up. So it'll be fun to continue to watch you and your company and all the good things you guys are doing. And thank you for joining the day to kind of talk about it. And so if somebody wants to reach you, are you on LinkedIn? And could you maybe give your
link? Yeah. Email one more time, LinkedIn, Stephen Jensen. You can do Stephen with a PH at sjp.vegas. And then if that, of course, is our domain, the sjp.vegas. Feel free to reach out directly to me. And I'm going to start recording a podcast myself, which is going to be called Behind the Black Curtain, and plan to dive more into my story, not only my stories, friends of mine who had started pushing cases who are now business owners, lead singers of bands, bringing them on and telling the tales of how it all began. So I look forward to getting that popped off as well. And we'll make sure to get those notices out as that releases too.
Love that. So, congrats on that. So Behind the Black Curtain, we will all be looking for it.
Coming soon. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining, Stephen. And if everybody enjoyed what they heard today, don't forget to hit subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, reach out to us at podcast@lasso.io. Thanks, everyone.